Good morning. It's May 7th, and we are in Spilt Mill. I always want to say Split Mill.
Yeah.
We're reading the second chapter, Holy Body. So Ellen wrote me yesterday and she goes, I really like this chapter. I said, thank goodness.
Oh, no.
Because I thought we were heading for a crash.
You're the one that answered when I asked you, was the whole book like the first
Right,
time? You
right.
said yes.
Yes,
And I
I was
went,
like,
Right. Exactly. That's why I went away last time. But we have to change this.
Right, but,
What did you think of the story?
I haven't finished,
it.
right. And the third chapter also is going to give us a lot.
This gave me a lot.
This gave me a lot, and the next one's about surrogacy.
Oh.
So
my.
that's in 2 weeks.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Very fast. Do all of you relate to this as short story, bordering on essay? Do you think it's like our other short? I mean, I'm trying to the genre. This is supposed to be a short story.
Yeah.
It's more like memoir.
I think
Yeah.
stories
It's like
that
a
happen in
diary.
life.
Right.
Writing
Right.
almost.
Right, but they are short stories from within there. I mean, the the diaspora book, I mean, that was by different authors.
Right,
Those were
right.
distinct
Yes, those were
short
just-
stories.
Right.
This is when,
There was
when it's all by
another-
one, it's different.
There's
Well, even the
another-
one we just read, the
Yeah, that's memoir.
Denise
Oh,
Small's
right.
memoir.
Okay. So, it's like there's a point.
In between.
It's a fuzzy line.
Fuzzy line.
Fuzzy.
So, Holy Body. This just brought,
Hot teacher.
Hot for Teacher, I thought it was called.
oh, sorry. Hot for teacher.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I was
Sorry,
scared I read
sorry,
the
sorry.
wrong thing.
Right, that was the next one. I got it.
Wait.
Hot for teacher. And I hope the recording gets that. I think that this was making me uncomfortable, with the young boy. And I think that as I know things are different now, and that sometimes men, and he was a boy man, just take things, they think they can say whatever they want, and it's up to us to say, you can't say that. And, she should have, flunked him from the get-go and slapped him down right from the beginning. That's what do you all say?
Well, her whole thing about how she controlled herself from not blushing or
Exactly.
is nice to say, but I don't think I'm speaking for myself. If this had happened, I don't think I could have controlled myself. I think I would have
Right.
reacted just like you. Everybody should.
Listen.
That was unbelievable.
I'm sorry, Roberta, go ahead. And you need to unmute. I have to let in.
I think as a teacher, she had the responsibility to stop him and then privately share her feelings of why it was inappropriate to share and ways in which he could alter his story. And I thought she was wrong to let him go on. I thought she should have stopped him at the beginning and not embarrassed him, but pulled him to please see me later. And then had a one-on-one conversation with him. It went too far.
Yeah, I think we do. Merle, then Elaine, then Lynn. Merle. Wait. I got you. Go ahead.
I think she should have been honest immediately and should have said, this story makes me uncomfortable. I'd like you to choose a different topic. I'd be happy to meet with you some other time, but just forget this topic. I think she should have shut it down immediately. And made me remember when I was a volunteer tutor at Highland Park High School in the writing lab, and I used to help kids write essays. And this boy came in, we were reading Of Mice and Men at the time. They were all doing that. All the papers were about Of Mice and Men. And he comes and he says to me, hey, can you tell me why Curly put his hand in a glove with Vaseline? And he was trying to embarrass me.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I said to him, oh, Curly just got married. He wants his hand to be soft in case he wants to hold his wife's hand. That's what I said. He wanted way more. He wanted way more. Yeah, he was trying to really embarrass me. And so I think what you have to do is shut it down immediately. And that's that was her mistake not to do that.
Yeah. Agreed. Elaine, Lynn, and then Barb.
Okay,
Elaine.
I think that the onus
of the story is on her. I don't think that she has control of her emotions or her sexuality and was strong enough to put him down. And I think that the onus of of that portion of the story and the rest of the chapter goes to her inability to understand. I don't know when this book took place, but when, in the 70s or
She
80s?
wrote it. In
I think it's a
20
little
it came
different
out in
story, but I don't
2022.
think
I think it's more
that she was strong enough to have that kind of say, okay, this is inappropriate and this is not good. Instead, she whines and talks about not blushing and.
I don't think that's whining.
All right, wait. Throughout the book, I think she's whining.
Oh, right.
All right. Anyway, I think that she just didn't have the wherewithal to be strong enough as a person to handle some of these problems. And I think that it says more about what she's writing than his overreaction and trying to get a rise out of her. Okay, that's my opinion.
We have Lynn, Barb, and then Alice. Lynn.
Okay, I'm speaking as a human, as a teacher, in all of the roles I've been in, because I've been in some of the
Yes, you have.
situations she's been in, and I agree with you. I don't think she had the maturity.
How would you?
However, as the story evolves, I think she comes to the conclusion, she uses the word, we have to know what they want, what the motivation is for characters in a piece of literature, but we have to know also in life, what is your motivation? You know, what is it that's driving you to do what you're doing? And at the end, she lists various motivations he might have had. She didn't have that knowledge at that time. But as she experienced all these other things, but you don't have the time to think when the doctor's putting his fingers up.
Yeah, right.
What's his motivation, you know?
There's all kinds
But the reason why I think she's saying we need to know people, and this is, see, I think all these stories broaden out to life in general. The reason why we need to know people's motivations for what they're doing is so we don't make assumptions. And sometimes we make faulty assumptions about people. Now, this kid, what was his motivation? And she said, was it a joke? Was it to embarrass me? Was it, you know, all those things? To come down hard on him, I don't think was the answer. The answer might have been taking him aside afterwards and say, you know, what was it you intended? What was the reason you were saying that? And that would have helped her and it would have helped him understand. And so I love this story.
Yeah.
I mean, this story spoke to me in a big way.
Well, as a teacher,
As a person.
as a person, Barb, Alice, and then Roberta.
Okay, so when I first started reading this story, I was really confused. I had, you know, we read the other one pre-anesthesia. I guess.
Yeah.
And I for a minute there, I had to read it over the beginning several times. I was questioning whether this is her story or if it's a different short story about a different person. And then I saw on the cover, it says memoir. So I said, okay, so it's got to be her. And I felt like if this had been the first, I didn't like the first chapter.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, this is really, you know, whining and downer and all that. But if this had been the first chapter in the book and the other one had been the second chapter, I would have understood where she came from, which was a background of continual abuse. I mean, she had a lot of abuse. And when you are trying to decipher, especially her mother took her to the doctor when she was young, and she thought, well, this must be part of the examination or whatever. You just don't know. So she had a lot of abuse in her childhood, which explained a lot of what happened in the first chapter. And she had, she didn't recognize at the time that all of this was inappropriate until she was older and a little more mature. And then again, at the very last paragraph in this story, someone's telling her son in a photo to kiss this girl. And she didn't stop that either, but she questioned it. And, so many times when things are just happening, you don't realize till later on, or saying, oh, I should have done this. I should have done this. This was inappropriate. And I mean, I think that happens to all of us. I think that's a universal thing, that all of us have had things that happen in their life that we said, I should have handled that differently.
Yeah. Here. Alice and then Roberta.
Yeah. Boy, this is so interesting. I read the story, like, I don't know. Yeah, last night.
Yeah.
But in the, what I was going to say is, I read Atlantic Magazine. I don't know if any of you read it, but this month's Atlantic Magazine, but I'm in the middle of this article, is about how porn has infiltrated popular culture, and also how it affects women and what it means to women. And really a lot of women have what do I want to say, have put themselves out there and been like part of the whole porn thing. But I think this author of this article I'm reading is saying kind of, it's still like demeaning women, and more than demeaning women, it's putting women in their place, and it's probably not a good thing. But anyways, this story,
Probably.
I saw it more as a comment on society. I mean, of course it happened to her personally because it's a memoir, but I think she was reflecting on what's happening what's been happening in our world. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, I found the article and I put it in the chat, and I can send it out to you all tomorrow. But it looks like a good article.
Oh my God, it's really good.
Yeah, okay. Roberta, and then Mary, then Lynn.
I'd like to thank Barbara for saying you had to read it more than once to make sure you knew what was going on, because I had to read it more than once, and I thought, oh my God, why? And then I questioned my ability, and I was very anxious for this discussion to see where it would go. And to Alice's point on pornography, I think we see it different, because when you go back in history, pornography was much a part of culture. When we went to Ephesus, on all the walls, there was pornography. There were special rooms. So I think it's a matter of how society looks at it, defines it, and uses it in their culture. The third thing I want to mention is I wonder what this story would have been like in the Me Too movement.
It's when it was written.
I think it is.
That's when it was written. It was.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Way before that, and I think
No, I don't think it was. I think it was.
2017 was when Me Too started.
Yeah.
And it was written 2022. That movement was at its apex probably
Right.
in 2022.
but it would be
But it was a-
interesting to look at or to think about
Totally the stuff about Me Too.
the Me Too movement in her reactions. Would she have reacted differently,
Yeah,
She became aware.
been more educated?
right. I
think
can tell you this story.
yes.
My very, very good friend, her father is OBGYN, he's since passed on. She spent 1977 in Israel. She didn't feel well, and she was in the hospital. And some doctor, she was young, cute, and this Israeli doctor, and her Hebrew was just about good enough, said to her, "You need a gynecological exam." And she looked him right back and said, "No, I don't. Get the hell out of here." But that was unusual for 1977.
Got fined.
And you know, to talk back to a doctor, a male doctor, like my mother-in-law, if her doctor had told her to put on leeches, she would have done it. Like she never. I said, you know, Mom, why didn't you? Well,
I know why.
you know, and I think hopefully we are, you know, training our daughters and our granddaughters to really question and say, you know, what's happening. And I think even there's a very funny Friends episode where Joey goes in. Chandler Bing goes in and they're measuring his pants and the tailor is like feeling his balls. And they're like,
His expression.
right, he goes, "Is that normal?" And they're like, "No, say no, what's the matter with you?" So we all have to, you know, and what I was going to, you know, Lynn shared with us, having been up in front of a group where a kid is trying to embarrass you,
Yes,
been there,
of course.
done that.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard. And listen, I'm a fast thinker. I've had a lot of experience. It's harder than you think to
Tell
just
me.
slap them down. You know, it's
But
Yeah.
nowadays, there's so many women gynecologists.
well, that's
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons.
Yes.
And all of my friends now go to women.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Barb.
Okay.
Oh, Mary, then Barb. Sorry. Then Alice. Okay.
So I think there's been a huge change because of the Why Me movement.
Right.
And my daughter-in-law, and my son-in-law, they have taught their children, their body is theirs. They can say, no, your space. I mean, as a 3-year-old, there was an incident at a daycare center with my granddaughter. She started going in the closet. She wouldn't come out of the closet. She was like very weird and upset. And there was a male aide who took her into the bathroom. They never proved it, but they moved, of course, immediately. But you know what? They took her to a psychologist and said, the first thing you have to do is put a sign in the bathroom of the things you don't about your body, about keeping your space, and read it to her when she's taking her bath. Make it normal that you can talk about this, because you're never going to get, I mean, and little kids don't talk about what happened. But anyway, but the other thing is that I think there's been a change in gynecologists and how we view doctors. And thirdly,
Okay,
when
solidifies it.
okay.
Who's talking?
Yeah, that's a kind of a.
Got it.
okay, so the other thing is a teaching thing. So I'm brand new at Deerfield High School. I'm an aide. There was a class of freshman boys who were all of them were sent out to North Shore, you know. They weren't kept at Deerfield by the end of the year. So the teacher wasn't, the teacher, there were like 7 or 8 of them. So the teacher was not in the room and I was teaching. And this kid picks up a pen and throws it at my chest and says, "I love your breast," just like that, like really loud. And I didn't know what to do. And these are out of control boys. I mean, truly out of control all the time.
Were you in the cage?
No, they were in the cage, but they came in, they were integrated, but they weren't integrated. I mean, it was horrible. 7 of them.
If they went to that North Shore, that means that they're.
No. And they were heading there. I mean, they knew that within a month of them being at Deerfield. I mean, it was just like one incident after another. But I didn't know what to do because I was alone. So if I walked out of the room to get help, and there's the day before phones, there was no phones in the room. There was nothing you could do. I didn't know so the only thing I could think to do was tell him he was, I couldn't throw him out in the hall either because who knows what. So I had to keep him, but I had to keep the class.
Yeah.
It was the worst 10 minutes of my life. I remember walking to the door and standing in the door in case someone came down.
Yeah.
I could signal him.
Yeah.
And,
Get over here.
and It was, I mean, I did not have, I mean, I'm still blushing. I mean, it was just, and I wasn't prepared for this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I didn't even know how to handle that level, especially.
Yeah, I did.
That wasn't.
I absolutely am. All right.
So-
Lynn, then Barb, then Alice.
All right, I want to respond to Mary and to Sue. No,
Elaine.
Elaine. The idea of being prepared and knowing things is essential. We back then weren't prepared or didn't know, and these red flags, and she names a number of red flags in here that she ignored. So but the question also is, how do you, I mean, you deny, you reframe, you try to say, oh, this isn't threatening. The questions, why do we ignore red flags? And that happened in the Holocaust as well. If you saw, no, we're not in danger, they love us, we're not going to be threatened. Here, oh, this isn't threatening, he didn't mean that or what. And how do we distinguish between whether that's a red flag or if it's normal childhood behavior? Sometimes we overreact, and she said that too. So I don't blame her necessarily. I think she evolved in here and called the police finally. And she was older. I think she was 29 or something at the point, wasn't she? 27 or 29,
29.
teaching high school. When you're just, I was same age as my student. I mean, I was 2 years older than my students. I mean, what did I know? So I think she brings up a lot of ambiguity
Yeah,
in here
absolutely.
about what do we do in a case like this? And I have to admit, and I'm not going to tell details, but I was in similar situations that she was in, felt trapped and frozen.
Yeah, you freeze. You have, yeah. Barb, Alice, then Elaine. Barb.
So, I just wanted to remind everybody about this terrible thing that happened with all of these ice skaters and this doctor who wasn't even.
Oh, yeah.
It's terrible.
Years until finally people started talking to each other and finding out how inappropriate this was. I mean, he committed these terrible crimes against these young girls for many, many years until
Many girls.
finally brought to justice for it. So I think today, as women have evolved and we know what is appropriate in the Me Too movement and so forth, a lot more of us is out there, and what is private and what is appropriate. So it's a learning curve.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Alice, Elaine, and then Sue.
I don't know. I feel like listening to everybody, I'm looking at this story differently. Well, wait, first of all, this is a little thing, but Mary, you're right when the story was written, but she's talking about years ago. So it was before the Me Too movement. So that's one thing. Vanessa?
I think reflecting on the Me Too movement, you begin to reflect on your experiences differently than I have.
No, I understand.
Definitely.
I understand. But Vanessa, you use the word something embarrassed. I feel like she is showing examples of either sexual harassment or sexual abuse. And I think this story for me, this story isn't as much about how she's reacting. It's about what our society is teaching men and women, and also, I don't know, it's just, and also at the end, when it's about her son, who's a young boy, I think it makes her think like, well, it seems innocent. I mean, probably that happens all the time, but is it something we should talk about? Or is it something that we should allow, that it's normal? But I really feel this story is about sexual abuse and sexual harassment and how it is seen in our society, how it's dealt with in our society.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree.
Okay.
Elaine, Susan, Merle, Ellen.
Okay, I think now that maybe after listening to everyone, I will change my opinion a little bit.
I love it. I love it.
That's why I like it.
I think that women in that era were trained to be people pleasers. And we were afraid to open up our mouths. And when you went to a doctor, the doctor was like God, okay? And you didn't question what they did. And I think that nowadays, maybe the pendulum has gone too far. Maybe we question too much. But I think then we absolutely did not. And I think we just suffered whatever you thought was right or wrong and just kept your mouth shut.
Yeah, agreed.
I agree.
Susan. Well,
So I'm going to bring up something totally different.
okay.
Because everybody is concentrating and talking about this kid and her teacher in the classroom and all that business. What about the beginning of this story and her relationship with Carrie? And nobody's even mentioned any of that.
You're talking about the first story.
No, I'm talking about this story.
Anybody?
Charlie.
Oh, no, we're not talking about.
Charlie.
No,
That
we're
is
talking about-
That's the kid.
That's the kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the kid who.
That's the
Oh,
kid.
did I read the wrong story?
No, hot for
Well,
teacher.
Carrie, this is Charlie.
More than anything, Charlie read in an even voice. He wanted for her to realize that she shouldn't depend on the
Yeah.
bankers or lawyers he imagined she
I'm
dated.
reading the wrong story?
No. Hot for teacher.
No, she didn't read hot. She's in Holy Body.
Oh. All right, that's in 2 weeks and it's really good.
You know what? I read Hot for Teacher.
Yeah,
So now I know.
now you know where we are. Okay.
Oh God.
It's okay, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Now I
Merle, Ellen, Alice. Merle.
Okay, I thought she summed it up beautifully, what she was trying to say. She said, for the rest of the term, I considered how it hadn't mattered that I had 10 years on Charlie and more degrees, or that I could have failed him with the stroke of a pen. He'd still felt compelled to exert sexual power. I was still a woman. That no matter what age, these people, these boys have been taught that they can exert their sexual power over women. Okay, so this is the most embarrassing story of my whole life, but I'm going to tell it. I was in Hebrew school. I was 13. I was the only girl in the class. I had already finished my bat mitzvah, but I really enjoyed Hebrew class and I continued to go. One day, our Gaveret got sick with a migraine headache. She said, kids, I'm so sorry. I have to leave the class now. I'm sick. I have a migraine. She leaves. Nobody comes in to replace her. The boys went insane. They jumped on the desks, the tables, and a boy who was my friend pushed me against the wall and touched me inappropriately on the chest. Okay. I was, as you can imagine, shocked and horrified. I grabbed my coat and my books. I left. I never went back to Hebrew school. That was the sad part. I never went through confirmation. I did go to synagogue, but I never went back to class. So I told my family, I said, I don't want to report him. He's a little boy. He's a crossing guard. He's 13. He has freckles on his face. I don't want to report him. I don't want to talk to the rabbi or his mother. But I look back on it now. I could have gone to Hebrew school. I could have gone to confirmation. I think I did the wrong thing.
Oh, you were a kid.
Yeah.
No, but
My family felt like they didn't want to make me uncomfortable.
I did read this.
People, right.
Yeah.
So like many women, I did nothing. I didn't report.
Yes.
How many of these incidents?
And
were
I started
reported?
reading.
Oh, for every one that's reported, there's 10 that are.
Or because
Or more.
100, right? Teacher.
Ellen.
Full of sense.
Okay, that's interesting, Merle, and I think that it shows the evolution maybe that we've come to from back when we grew up to what's going on now. There is a book out there, this is a little side point, called All Fours by Miranda July.
Yes.
Which I don't recommend because I have not thought, I mean, I've just finished it. We're doing it for our book club. I can't wait to find out why she even selected this book. But it's what Alice was saying in terms of how prevalent porn has become. And especially if you take the characters in that book, And maybe where this author is not yet. In that she's so, the women are so much more forceful and, oh, she got the.
It's a National Book
Yeah,
Award.
I know, and it's God knows why. Have you read it?
No,
Oh, okay.
I've heard of it.
Well, I mean, if you're interested, read it, but I think you'll probably agree with me. It's women kind of are in a much more powerful or at least self-powerful mode now. And going back to the story, I think that well, two things I wanted to say. I think that she's a little bit overboard and not going, I think her first her first reaction was to try not to blush and whatever.
Right.
But I think she's looking at the creative writing part of it and trying to emphasize that when a wrong is committed, a wrong should be, righted, and she doesn't do that. So, but I think when we look at it through all of our experiences, we see how different, even though this wasn't that long ago, it was, I agree with Mary that it's not, but at least we don't know when she wrote it.
Yeah.
But the book is published much later.
Yeah.
I just think it's a reflection of her whole period of
Yes.
her.
Yes, and the Me
of
Too
dealing
movement is a
with
great
boys,
reference.
men, whatever, from the time she was little on the playground all the way through.
It's a long period too
Yeah.
that she's discussing.
Yes, and now her own child. I mean,
Yes.
so, it's.
But the child, that's what I wanted to say. That part I found so funny because what nobody said, the little girl wants it, the little boy is mortified. So it's the difference in maturity and the young kids, it's a difference in maturity, I think. But it's so interesting to take note of that and realize that it's training. Boys have to be taught what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate. Not the girls don't, but everybody needs to have that. If they do it wrong, then they need to be called on it and said,
Yeah.
And I think, jump in here just one. So I have a 5-year-old grandson. He's in pre-K. He has a little, and he likes to kiss girls. No, I'm serious. He's into kissing. He asks his mom about it all the time. And he wants to kiss her. He wants to kiss me and said, and he said, can I kiss you on the lips? I said, no. And I went to Anna, what is it? He's in a thing. We talk about it all the time. But she's taught him when someone says no or pushes away or avoids and to be sensitive to it, she pushes it all the time. And she's talked to him with him. He's a 5-year-old. Now, my generation of boy would never be told, okay, we have to talk about kissing. I mean, it wouldn't happen. But in this is and I think some of what he's doing is because other people have talked about it with their kids, so their kids talk about it. I think there's a thing in the classroom probably.
It's in the air.
It's in the air. But the point is that boys are being taught now what is appropriate, what's not. Now, that doesn't mean they follow it.
So
That
I
doesn't mean
think
all families.
boys and girls are being taught consent, and it's, it's just more, yes.
Very
Yes.
prevalent now.
Alice, then Lynn.
Yeah. Okay, two things. First of all, Merle, you said something at the end. You shouldn't feel bad of how you reacted. You were a young girl all alone with all these boys and assaulted by somebody. So I don't think you should feel bad. I think it's like another example of, it's kind of like what happened to this woman. That's one. Don't feel bad. Two, when I was reading this story, I couldn't stop thinking about, and I'm just going to say the word because it'll all mean something to you, the Brett Kavanaugh story.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Same thing.
Brett Kavanaugh. What about, what's his name? Thomas.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Pubic hair.
unfortunately, there are so many examples.
There's so many examples.
But-
We could just have a book group about that.
That's that's more recent than Thomas, but that's all I could think about.
All right, Lynn.
The main thing is what I'm hearing, and in my own family, we didn't discuss this issue at all. I mean, it never, I don't know if it was,
we're too old.
if it was
We're the wrong
around, but we
generation.
just didn't. So a bunch of us were talking about it. I think it was the beginning of the Me Too movement, and we were all sharing stories. And I had this epiphany. I was sexually assaulted. I said, these incidents that happened to me, I was sexually assaulted. Did I know that? No, I didn't know that. So I didn't do anything about it. So knowledge and being taught is essential to this. Also, I think her You're giving me this look.
Yeah, how could you not know that you're sexually assaulted?
Well,
Because it was normal at that time.
I didn't know that,
Yes.
well, I
It was
know
never
something
normal. It
was
was never normal, but she
inappropriate.
had supplements.
Right.
Like a friend of mine said she was walking in junior high down the hall and this guy grabbed her breast.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And you let it go. I had
You
a,
let it
I had a
go.
teacher that used to flip the back of my bra strap.
God.
And did
Oh,
I
I
ever
had a
report?
teacher
He
who
plucked
did that
me.
too.
He
Okay,
plucked
did you
me.
think that was sexual assault?
Yes, it was.
Oh.
But we
Maybe
didn't.
I was naive. I don't know.
No.
Well, and it still happens. I mean, my daughter was in high school. Her AP history teacher used to make sexual comments to her if he was walking down the stairs behind her.
That's amazing. But
Did she,
And
He
she,
would do that.
well,
did she share that with you?
after the fact, not when,
course. I know while it was
it was
happening.
AP, she'd taken, I mean, she was out of the class and she was and she had graduated from Highland Park and she said, and then she broached it because it was an interesting way she did it. She had been, it was spring, May, whatever, and she was home from school, from first year at Barnard, Columbia.
Yeah.
And she goes to pick me up. Oh, she went back to Highland Park to see teachers. And then she came to pick me up. And she said, I just don't understand how these girls dress. She goes, it's no respect for the teachers. And they're asking for it from their teachers. And I said, what do you mean you're asking for it? Well, she said, when I was in high school, I had a teacher. I mean, so the point is that, and she didn't know what to do. At 16, she just bottled it up.
Froze.
But now that she has had more experience in life, she's 18 and been away to college, and she goes back, it all came back to her because she's watching all these girls in their, midriff showing and all this stuff. And she goes, I might sit at campus on the grounds that way, but I would never go to a class with a professor not, in normal clothes. I mean, more dressed, not dressed up, but just more, like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt that doesn't show your midriff. But she said they're asking for it, Mom. And she came out, she's obviously it triggered it. She's looking at and
But we at that time did not ask for it and.
no, she didn't either. I mean, she
And
wasn't asking for
I
it.
was
She knows that
embarrassed. I was embarrassed and I was afraid and I had all these emotions in me and I never shared that with anybody. But he called the next day and apologized for his inappropriate behavior because I think he thought, what happens if she reports me?
Yeah.
Well, I was too naive to do it,
Yeah.
to do it, but he knew. So how do these guys know
No,
that
I
it's
understand.
inappropriate, but we didn't know
I
that?
understand what you're saying, because I had a teacher
Yeah.
in 7th grade who would go, that was in the days when girls were wearing these peasant blouses with the
Oh, right.
elastic things and the
Yes.
puffy sleeves, he'd go around and pull on the elastic
Yeah.
on your,
Yeah.
and I mean, I did know that was inappropriate.
Okay.
I did know. And I stayed clear of him. I mean,
Right.
I never wore a peasant blouse again to that class. Ever, but I
That begs, and we're
I
gonna
didn't report him, and I
get tomorrow. And that begs the question, I'm here for a lot of B'nai Mitzvah and these girls wear,
Oh my God.
we don't even talk, the shortest, the tightest.
Oh.
And of course, we get complaints. And
How do their parents let them?
that's what, how do their parents
It's
let them?
not getting better.
They do that.
Oh, it's hell, it's not getting better.
Because I've talked to
I would-
my granddaughter. Yes.
They look like whores.
They look like
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And I've said that, and my kids will say, Mom, don't say that. I said, I'm sorry. I'm so worked up when I get home from these B'nai Mitzvah because, they don't know what they're doing.
Okay, but now we're blaming
their
the
moms-
victim.
No.
They-
Listen,
They haven't been.
I agree with you, but a no means no.
a no means no, absolutely. Meryl, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that there was a little boy at Lincoln School who was around 5 years old, and he was Russian, and he used to go around at lunch program, I guess, and touch the little girls who had pierced ears. He'd go touch their earrings, and I knew how to speak Russian because I majored in it in college. So they said to me, they knew. They said to me, "Will you tell him do not touch the girls? Tell him that it's not okay in our country to touch the girls." And I told him. And then there were just so many other things, like during a fire, he thought that you were supposed to run into the library to save the books. And I explained, you know, when there's a fire drill, you just go out.
That's remote.
What it reminded me of when I was in school, and the little girls had ponytails or pigtails, that the boys would come and yank your hair so hard, you'd hurt your neck. You'd have a stiff neck. Nobody said to them, you shouldn't be touching the girls or pulling their hair.
That's a
It
different.
starts with way before touching their body parts. They
Yes.
shouldn't be touching the girls like that.
Right.
So I don't know why our generations, you know, when 1950s never taught the boys that. So
Or the girls.
yeah.
Or the, it's
tell
the
us,
same.
yeah, right, it's
Because
exactly.
we were taught to be good and we were taught to be quiet. And that's what we were taught in the 50s.
Yeah.
Come on, you knew your place.
True.
And I remember thinking, even when we were first married, my husband came home, be quiet, Dad worked all day, you have to be good. Nowadays, it's like whatever, the kids are the most important and the kids are, but then you were taught to mind your own business.
Yeah.
And especially if you were Jewish, you wanted to fit in, you wanted to be American.
Yeah.
You didn't want to, I grew up in a Gentile Lutheran neighborhood, okay, in the 40s. My grandmother kept saying, shh, shh, shh. You don't know, you don't point yourself out. You don't do those things. You just keep it inside.
Alice and then Sandy. Alice, go ahead.
Lynn, I think you brought up a really important point. I think it's a really difficult point about not blaming the victim.
Yes.
But to what Vanessa was saying about how the girls are dressing for it's, I feel like, are the girls dressing like that because they feel that they feel pretty, it's nice, or are they dressing like that because they want to attract the attention of young men?
Yes.
It's like
I agree.
I think there's like a
Yeah.
slippery slope. I don't
They're
know. I
following
don't know
their friends more than
I don't know the answer, but I
It come-
feel like the question of I mean, part of this article I'm reading is, I'm sure you probably all remember when Jennifer Lopez came on an award show. She was
Oh, yes.
basically naked.
I
Well,
know.
is that appropriate? I used to love watching the award shows to see the
now-
beautiful
Yeah, but now
dresses.
they're-
Now they're
Now I
crazy.
hate it.
If you.
I
know.
Since they're crazy.
I-
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
To me,
I-
I don't, I guess it's showing my age. I don't think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, I think what you're talking about is my first statement about motivation. You get to the heart of it. What is their I don't think they realize that they're being objectified when they wear clothes like that. I don't,
I know.
I'm giving them more credit
Yes.
maybe than
Exactly.
I think some of them are copying the other girls.
Absolutely. If they were all wearing hats, they'd
Yes,
come
they
with
don't.
hats.
So I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think it is that we don't know the motivation, but the girls should know, they should know better.
We have Sandy, Joyce, and then Roberta. Sandy, go ahead.
Wait.
I have noticed maybe for 5, maybe 10 years since Rabbi Taylor was there, even girls getting up on the bimah on the high holidays with short skirts on. And it's really, I'm wondering, what were their mothers thinking when they left the house that morning? I've seen other girls come with their fathers to high holiday services, possibly a home where there's a divorce and they're just coming with a father to services. They're dressed so inappropriately. And I'm thinking, what were the parents thinking, the father or the mother,
Afraid to say anything.
to bring
You
a
want their
child
kids
in
to
like
fit
that?
in.
And then I've seen some women get up on the bimah in the choir and sit
Yes,
with their legs spread apart,
yes.
no hose
Yes.
on, no hose on. Their legs look terrible, and it's really embarrassing.
Well,
It's really-
we can't be the fashion police.
It isn't
Ah.
fashion though. There's a ladylike way to look, and girls should be taught to want to look ladylike, to look feminine, beautiful, and everything, but not exposing themselves like that. It's not pretty, and I feel uncomfortable when I sit there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We have Joyce, go ahead, Roberta, and then Barbara. Joyce.
I think there is a very fine line that we sometimes cross. Lynn, you mentioned it before. Sometimes we do blame the victim, and we have a hard time not to when we see how these young girls do dress as if, yeah, they are asking, quote unquote, for it. And it's interesting. I don't have granddaughters. I have 3 grandsons. And when I go, Sandy, I agree with you. When I go to synagogue and my kids belong to a very conservative synagogue, and I look at these teenage girls and how they're dressed, and you begin to wonder, who are they dressing for? Is it themselves? Is it their peer group? Is it the boys? And
themselves.
you just
Certainly starts that way.
you wonder.
You
And-
wonder, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And you, who do you blame? You can't blame the parents completely. They have some say so, but only so much. And
I disagree with that. They have the credit card, they take them shopping, that's baloney.
And they see them.
Who is the adult in the family? I wouldn't let my kid, I mean, there's different parenting now. And there's also when you're from a divorced family, girls from, a divorced family, there's a profile. They're very provocative and that profile stands. But, I don't think we need to blame anyone. It's just, I don't think we can blame it. All right, wait, we have Roberta, Barb, Merle, Lynn. Roberta, go. Right.
Should go back to talking about the book.
Okay, wait, right. Roberta.
I think of 3 stories. When I was in high school, I remember a freshman in high school, you had to stand with your arms at your side, and if your dress or skirt was not longer than
Really?
Yes, the dress code.
So I was sent home because sports were popular then.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, I'm laughing because I think of my father-in-law. He used to say, "What's going on?" You're in jeans, you mess.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that while we criticize or comment negatively about the younger generation, this is their norm.
Yeah.
It is. People are
we said about that, yeah.
to the norm because they don't really know who they are. They just want to belong. And while it's inappropriate, vulgar, cheap, whatever adjective we use, the kids nowadays don't see that. And I think there has to be some way to communicate between what we want, what we should accept as current styles, and what they know. There has to be some compromise. And
Interesting. Yeah.
the third thing is, I think the role models, MTV, the basketball, the
No MPT.
women singers, the videos are all so offensive and inappropriate to me.
Yeah.
And that's when I feel low, because to the kids nowadays, my grandchildren, that's normal. They think nothing of it. I went to a dance show on Sunday, And all these little cute kids, even down to 5 or 6, are dancing to the rap music with very suggestive movements that I know they don't understand.
Yeah,
They're being
yeah.
taught.
They don't.
Yeah.
No,
All right. Thank you, Roberta. Barb.
5 years old.
Okay, so I can remember a time when it was considered inappropriate for women to wear pants to synagogue.
Exactly.
Yes, I remember that.
And, you know, I guess we've evolved. And Roberta, to your point, this is the next generation.
Exactly.
I don't know where they're evolving to. And maybe someday they'll, you know, they
Wear skirts.
adopt a sense of what may be in good taste or not, but that's not up to us.
Exactly.
And also, we haven't said a word about what is appropriate for men's dress. I had for Don and our last anniversary, we went to Morton's and we invited our now 18-year-old grandson to go with us. And his usual mode of dress was a t-shirt and maybe sweatpants or jeans. And I said to him, he'd never been there. I said, this is a very upscale restaurant and I hope you can wear something nice. And he put on a pair of slacks and he came and and when we were there, he saw that everybody was, you know, dressed really appropriately. And he was too. He didn't stick out like a sore thumb among mostly people who were not his own age, you know, but, you know, there's that too. I mean, I see when I come to synagogue, like on a Friday night, I see a lot of people in jeans and so forth.
Shorts.
So we've even we've gotten even further away from pantsuits, but we're evolving.
Absolutely. Merle then Lynn.
I think we made some real progress with doctors because I've noticed there's a sign at the doctor's office that said, if you wish, you may have a chaperone during your exam.
Absolutely.
That's nice.
I just went to the
And
gynecologist,
then
yes.
For how to dress for these
I see at the desk.
important ceremonies. I have 3 daughters, so for the first 2 bat mitzvahs, nobody said anything to me about appropriate dress, and we did appropriate dress because that's our way. But for the 3rd daughter, the rabbi said to me, please make sure she's covered up. And I was like, yeah, we will, because we would have anyway. But I thought it was interesting that the rabbi said to me, because there must have been a lot of girls who had come inappropriately dressed.
Yeah.
So
There was a rabbi who would bless the kids by putting his hands on their shoulders. So he would say that their shoulders have to be covered. I don't want to touch them.
That's true.
And good for him. Lynn.
Okay. As we're talking, I thought about the biggest irony in the world.
Uh-oh.
These parents hovering at bus stops, protecting their kids against all the dangers that could happen to them in a neighborhood. In this story, she's talking about going to the police. And the police said, and we know in all these stories on TV, they say we can't do anything unless something happens. Okay. So the policeman says, be vigilant, be careful. That's their support.
Yeah.
So the author says, this is on page 42. I shrieked. This is a year or so later when this guy puts his hands up her skirt and starts fingering her. I shrieked and spun around, but the bass overwhelmed my voice, and in the low light, there was only a lattice of flesh, lips, and hands shifting and slithering, one mighty, insidious beast. And then in the next page, again, she uses this beast image. And what does this author say she uses as a weapon? Her keys in her hands. That's it. That's what she has as a weapon against this insidious beast. Do these young girls know what they're up against? If they are trapped, if they are assaulted, that's what should be coming home to them. How the dressing might allure somebody if they go to a nightclub or whatever as they're older. Look what we read the news. We read the news about the assault. So all of the parents' concerns with the kids, dangers, somehow it sort of slips by them as the kids get older and they don't realize, or they don't feel that they can intercede in their kids'
Yeah.
behavior. It's pretty sad.
Elaine.
Okay, when you started this whole thing by saying most people meet online. The reason why they meet online now is years ago, everybody went to a club or a bar.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can't do that because of the drinking and the somebody will put something in your drink. So I think the young women are more attuned to what is going on. I think as far as the clothing, because I just came from New York and they wear the most minute short skirts and white boots. That's the style that the out of college group wears, okay? And it's, some of them look good, some of them have chubby little legs. And, okay, but it shouldn't be what you're wearing. It should be in your mind, but this is a world where shouldn't be is not always practiced.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things why the online is so popular.
Yeah. We could have time to talk, but I have to just give a few things. We're meeting again in 2 weeks. That's May 27th. No, wait, 21st.
Oh,
May 21st. And then I can meet the first week in June, that's June 4th.
Yeah.
And, sharing, because I'm sharing with you, it's not for, public consumption, but my son is having very serious operation June 12th.
Oh.
And I don't know if I'll be back to do, he might still be in the hospital and I have to be with him. So, and are people around in June?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, if
We'll play it by ear.
thank you. It's a game day call. Thank you, Elaine. And I also want to warn you that the next story is 40 pages.
Yeah, I just. Oh, okay.
So, but it is good. I don't know if we'll get to the whole thing. We might have to do two weeks on it because it's really, it's about surrogacy and being good and I really, it's got a lot of meat.
Some are really short and some are long.
I know.
Yeah.
So, Mary.
Okay. First of all, Elaine told me about people dressing in New York. So I was in Chicago and it's exactly what you're saying. And it brought me back to when I took a history course at Northwestern and we talked about fashion and how anytime Vietnam War, the skirts went up. Every time there's societal, we went all the way back and looked at things in the 1700s. Anytime there's societal disruption.
That's when the skirts go.
Yes, you shorten skirts, you put on bathing suits for the first time rather than going in your skirt in the water.
Right.
I mean, you can go back to World War I, you can go back to even the Civil War, they changed, the styles changed to become less cumbersome for women and women's, So this is a really common thing that happens. So you know what society's like right now. Everybody's under a cloud, so everybody's shortening their skirts. But anyway, the other thing I think that is that I agree with the fact that we monitor our kids, we hover over our kids, there's a helicopter parent. And then, but somehow dress is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think of dress is who you are. It's a statement of who you are. And I don't know if parents think about that. I just think they think, well, they got to get along. They got to be with their friend. I don't know, because it is a statement.
Totally.
And people who have great style are people who find what looks good on them and it's appropriate.
I think parents just don't want another battle and the kids want to wear what every other kid is wearing. And I have always said, you become bar bat mitzvah when you're 13, when you just want to look like the crowd. And then at confirmation, which is like a group thing, you want to, be your own and stand out. It should really be reversed. It's really good to see everyone. Have a happy Mother's Day. May 18th, Sunday is Reader's Theater. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of bagels. And there's the block party in the afternoon. There's a lot to do. Watch your Macomb at home. If you need anything from me, let me know.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.